We have other responsibilities. But first, let's take that of our ethical responsibilities to clients. Yes, you have a responsibility and commitment to your client. You need to be committed. Once that social work or professional relationship is established, as a social worker, you're expected to be committed to that relationship. The professional relationship is not one you joke with. You need to your commitment to that relationship. And one way you can demonstrate your responsibility and commitment to that relationship is to be shortly and professionally. You have a time fixed, for example. Hello, who is disturbing us now? Bola Dada.
Oh,
Bola.
Sorry.
Kindly mic, please. Thank you. All right. So, for example, we had lectures today. We had class today. I was somewhere today. If you, I don't know if you are aware. Today is Social Work International Day. We were actually observing the day somewhere, the social work day somewhere, and it concluded with some form of merriment, enjoyment. But immediately I remembered, oh, I have a commitment. I have an appointment with my students. I had to rush down home because the environment was not conducive to have this lecture there. So I had to come back home exactly time to engage with you guys. So do you fix appointment with your clients? You agree to meet by 9. Please get there before your clients. That is how your clients even see commitment and even learn to be committed to the professional relationship. But a situation where you fix appointment with your client by 9 and your client gets there by 9 while you come 1 hour later or 30 minutes later. If you fix another appointment by 9, your client will come 11 o'clock. Because first impression matters most. While preparing, your client will say, that my social worker where no they come early. So you must demonstrate your commitment to your client by being punctual. Another ethical responsibility to our clients is to informed consent. Please, you're helping the clients to help themselves. In a professional relationship, what matters most is your client. It is your client's problem. So whatever decision you're taking for your client or on behalf of your client, you must secure a consent. Now, I will take time to explain this because it's a very dicey one. And I want us to make it very practical. You see, unfortunately, we find ourselves in a situation whereby there's no accountability. And because the social work profession is still growing, sometimes decisions are taken even on our behalf without regard, with total disregard to the social worker. But God's so kind, and fortunately, there's a shift, and gradually we are beginning to get to a stage where we can never be taken for granted like that. I think in our last class or thereabout, someone asked in this class that why is it that some of the persons practicing social work in most of these agencies and NGOs are not following the principles? That is because most of them are not professional and licensed social workers. But we are gradually getting to the point, and that's why there's need for this training to equip people, to expose people to the rudiments, to these principles of social work, to practice in line, so that in the end, once you're licensed, you know that, okay, fine. The reason why you're licensed is because it's believed that you've been trained. And once you practice outside the expanded boundaries of what is expected of you, then that license will be withdrawn, thereby making it impossible for you to practice that social work since you're not ready to practice in line with the expected rules and regulations. We see situations where people or maybe our bosses in our offices will just call us and will make decisions without securing informed consent. Please, as a matter of fact, as a matter of urgency and of serious concern, from today, whenever you're making any choice, kindly secure consent from your clients. And a verbal consent in most cases is not enough. Secure a written consent and put it in your client's file. Or sometimes your boss will just call you without even asking the client, or will just say, okay, fine, do this, do this, do that. And you will tell your boss, sir, there is need to secure a consent. And your boss will want to say, please, do what I asked you to do. Please don't go ahead, though. Because if the problem should boomerang, your boss would excuse himself, and the problem will land on your head. So I am not saying you should go about to disrespect your client or your boss, because that would amount to insubordination. But then you need to be smart. You need to demonstrate your competence. You need to be intelligent. One of the ways you can do this is you can call your boss back and act like you didn't remember what he asked you to do, and record the conversation. You could either send him a text message or an email message and document it that, yes, I was asked by my boss to do this. And if you're working directly with the client and you need to do something on behalf, you must ask the client, this is what we want to do. There are multiple options. These are the options. Which do you prefer? And the client is settling for a particular one. Please let the client sign. Because tomorrow that same client will tell you, I never asked you for that. I can't remember when I said you should do this. And mind you, we said these are ethical responsibility to client. These are things you owe the client. They are non-negotiable. Even when you're helping the client, you know one funny thing, humans cannot be predicted. There are sometimes as social workers, we go out of our way to help people. The fact that you go out of your way to help people does not mean that same person you're helping cannot harm you. We've seen instances where people you help are the ones even attacking you because they're not comfortable with the way you help them. So to save yourself from all this drama in the future is to make sure you document everything and follow through your ethical responsibility to your client. Another ethical responsibility, if at any point in time during the course of your relationship with your client, the professional relationship with your client perceived or noticed that you've leaked out, you divulge an important information outside of the professional environment, then the client has the right to sue you. Or if the client explains something to you, you know, like we said earlier, I used to tell people, social work, we are exposed to a lot of information, and that is why, as a social worker, automatically you should be intelligent. It's just like my parents will always say that a child that grew up, my father will always say, when I was growing up, he said, a child that grows up in a chief palace is not expected to be foolish. And I reasoned it while growing up. I reasoned that statement. It makes sense. Because the chief palace is where people come to solve their problems. While there in the chief palace, you see people come with their problems, and you see how those problems are solved. And you even ask yourself, what can be done to avoid all these things? So by virtue of your exposure, you should not just be intelligent or smart as to how to solve problems, but also how to avoid those problems in the first place. So that is what social workers are. By virtue of our job description, we should be wise. So people come to you to tell you their problems. It's not enough for you to go about and tell people. But then there's an exception to this rule. Because we have ethical responsibility to our clients, or because we have that networking, that relationship with our clients, this does not apply. For example, if I need to refer my clients to another agency, I am a social worker. I am a mental health social worker. And my client came to the hospital because of mental health. And I noticed that why this client developed that mental health issue was because of a dysfunctional family. Probably the husband was abusing her. That was how her mental state got messed up. After addressing the mental state and she's stable, there is need for me to refer that client to another agency or another social worker. And let's say in this case, I am referring this client to Bola Dada to handle that aspect of family instability, right? the problem of family, the client's family challenge, right? So now, because I'm trying to uphold the principle of confidentiality does not mean I should not tell Bola Dada, who is a certified and licensed social worker, about this client. That is not you breaching the principle of confidentiality, no. The only way you can be breaching the principle of confidentiality is telling that client's problem to another person who has no professional relationship with that client. So if you're telling another client, maybe your colleague, to assist you in the intervention process, then that is not breach of confidentiality, because the purpose for divulging that information is for the purpose of helping that client. I hope that is clear. Going forward, we'll now be looking at maintaining records. Mind you, we are still talking about ethical responsibility. You have the responsibility of maintaining records. Your client comes to you. Sometimes some of us have relationship with our client, professional relationship with our client, but we don't have any written document to that effect. This is my client. I'm his or social worker. This is my client, but no written document. How do you document your intervention, your engagement with him or her? That is not a professional relationship. In fact, that relationship can be exploited, can be taken advantage of. One can wake up and say you have no relationship with him, you have no dealings with him or her. How do you document his or her consent? That means you don't even take the client's consent. So we want to be careful to maintain good records. Now, the importance of keeping good records can never be overemphasized. The importance of keeping good record is not just for reference, for your own reference purpose. Yes, nothing is promised. You might be leaving that agency for a better life. You might be retiring or so. When you retire, that does not mean the client's problem has ended. Or if you're transferred to another agency, that does not mean the client's problem has ended. As far as there is no termination, and even when there is termination, there is need for documentation, so that if the problem reoccur again, someone can go, another social worker can trace the client's file and start up from where you stopped. So it's not just about keeping records. You need to maintain clean, clear records, so that even in your absence, the other social worker that is expected to take over from you can do that without any hiccups. Now, physical contact and sexual relations. Please, it is totally out of place to have any physical contacts with or sexual relationship with your clients. So whether directly or indirectly, there is the power dynamics between you and your client in the professional relationship. So be careful not to let this slide in. In fact, we are humans. And if you're single and you're searching, avoid the temptation of your client becoming your husband or wife. Social work profession should not give you a husband or wife, but, well, things happen. It's possible to find a love or to find your loved one in the course of practice. But then, if you feel there's beginning to be that chemistry between you and your client, then you should have nothing to do with that client any longer in terms of professional relationship. Someone else should take over that client immediately, while you can continue to explore your relationship with the client. But while having any dealings, professional dealings with that client, please, there should be no sexual contact. Avoid it. Avoid it. Totally avoid it. Interruption of services. Yes, another responsibility you have is you need to explain to your client whenever there are interruption of services. For example, if you have an appointment with your client and something happened, probably you're pregnant, or maybe the following morning that you're supposed to meet your client, or maybe your child falls sick, and you needed to rush your client to the your child falls sick, and you needed to rush your child to the hospital. You need to call your client to tell your client, please, due to circumstances beyond my control, it won't be possible to meet with you. Or you could better still exhaust other options by talking to another of your colleague to stand in your position. Please, I have an appointment with so and so client. Kindly see the client on behalf of me, please. Okay, we're supposed to do this, we're supposed to do that. But since I won't be around, just see the client and make the client comfortable. When I'm back, I will fix another appointment with the client. And you now see another beautiful part of keeping a clean record. That's your colleague that will be standing in for you the day you won't be available would rely solely on your records to know how to relate with that client. So whenever you have something comes up in between your appointment with your clients or your professional relationship, you must call your clients to explain to your clients or look for a better, an alternative. It's not enough. It doesn't matter to the social work profession that, okay, fine, my husband needed me or my children needed me. Yes, they are important, but you must communicate same to your clients, whom you've booked appointments with. It is a responsibility. Mind you, we said that is an ethical responsibility. A situation where you fail to do this is enough for the clients to come hard on you. Some of these things we are explaining are weighty matters. It will cost you your job. It will cost you your license. It could lead to suspension. It could even lead to imprisonment, depending on the gravity of the problem. Termination of services. Yes, whatever has a beginning must surely have an end. So as social workers, you should always know that, okay, fine, there come a time where there is need to terminate that professional relationship with your client. And you must spell it out that, yes, it is time to put an end to this professional relationship. Now, it is important to end the relationship because there is need for the client to grow. Yes, it's just like a nursing mother. It gets to a point where the nursing mother needs to stop breastfeeding the child, not because the mother is happy to do so or wants to do so, because sometimes it's always marked by some level of emotions. It's characterized by some level of emotions. Mothers continue at such times feel pity for their children, for their babies, while trying to win the child, right? The child will be crying for milk and you're not giving the child. But then it's necessary, it's important to do that. It marks growth. Yes, if your child keeps feeding on milk, that means the child is not growing, it's not demonstrating any sign of improvement. So termination also shows some level evidence of growth, development, improvement. You're working with a client for 5 years, 10 years, and you're not terminating your relationship with that client. That means the client will continue to be dependent on you. But once there is termination, the client knows that, okay, fine. At some point, I am on my own. Let me rely on my own, on myself, right? So that's the responsibility as social workers. That's the responsibility you have towards your clients. You also have another responsibility and commitment to your client in terms of the primary responsibility of the profession to promote the well-being of the client. Yes, you need to promote the well-being of the client, and you need to ensure the best interests of your client in the helping process. Now, we have another responsibility, which has to do with ethical responsibility to colleagues. Yes, you don't just have a responsibility to your clients. You also have a responsibility to your colleagues as social worker. Yes, we have it as a culture. It's non-negotiable. In social work profession, we respect hierarchy. That's the point. That's the truth. We respect hierarchy. I am a social worker and I have senior colleagues in the profession. There is no way I can disrespect them. I respect them. And courtesy demands that at every point in time, I identify them with their ranks, no matter the age. This is not a cultural relationship where you say, see this small boy, I'm older than you. Or, do you know how many years experience I have in this job? As far as professionally wise, this person is older than you, you need to respect your colleague. And this respect is not just one-sided. You as the senior colleague is also expected to respect the junior colleague, because they say respect is a reciprocal. So the fact that you are a senior colleague does not mean you should abuse that privilege. You need to respect your junior colleague. So the social work profession is marked by respect. And another ethical responsibility to colleague is interdisciplinary collaboration. This interdisciplinary collaboration is not just applicable to social workers from different fields or area of specialties. Earlier on in this class, I made mention of something very important, that oftentimes as social workers, after having identified a client's need, we might not necessarily be working with the clients directly. We might not even have anything to do with the client, but we know where the client's solution to the client's problem lies. All we need to do is to identify those resource persons, bring them together, work with them, manage the relationship, and ensure that they provide adequate services to the client and supervise the process to avoid or ensure that the client is not being abused or taken advantage of. That reminds me, during my school days, there is this young man from the East that would take, there's this children they used to give birth to that they will have cut, this deep cut at the side of their mouth. Now, what this man does, in fact, back then I wasn't even a social worker. What I noticed, he was doing social work to some extent. What he does was he will go about in various communities, pick those children and take them to Benue State. There was this hospital managed by the Australian government years back. What they did was to operate these children, feed them for the period of their stay there for free. So all he does is to assess these children, get funding to transport them to the hospital, and these children will be operated and their mouth will be sealed and they look beautiful and handsome. So you see that in this case, the man happens to be the social worker, but he's not the one doing the operation, but he could identify where the solution to their problems lie. So all he did was to help these children, these clients per se, to assess where they can receive help and ensure that the medical doctors and the nurses responsible for this operation are not taking advantage of these children. Supervise the process. After the operation and the healing process, he returned them back to their various parents. In some cases, their parents come with those children or used to follow the man to the hospital to take care of those children. So you see that in most cases, we don't find ourselves doing the actual helping or assisting of our clients. But then we bring people, professionals together. So there must be this, we have the responsibility of upholding these interdisciplinary collaborations. We must be able to respect people from other professions. Most of them don't have this training that we have. They come with their bad character, especially in the hospitals. With all due respect, sometimes you will see medical doctors and nurses behave in a way that is uncalled for, very nonchalant, and you begin to ask, are these people that are supposed to protect lives or to care for people that are dying? But then you can't blame them in most cases because they don't have this training and exposure that we have. That makes us, or that places us in a certain pedestal higher than them, because we have this human relationship. I've seen a situation where a client or a patient comes to the hospital and he said, okay, please, I don't want blood transfusion because of my religious belief. And the nurses are telling the client, the patient, that means you will die. This patient is telling you, this is how I want to be treated. The best you can do is to convince the client to accept other method of treatment or identify other method of treatment that are suitable to the client's religious beliefs. Not to kill or shatter the client's self-worth by telling the client he's going to die. That statement alone can even kill the client before the problem even decides to kill the client. So as professionals, we must understand and respect this interdisciplinary collaboration. And I also want to explain this. Sometimes, as a social worker, it doesn't mean that you must be the one to solve a problem. And the fact that the client's problem does not fall within your expertise and you're able to refer your clients to another social worker, that does not make you incompetent. Rather, it makes you competent. So do not feel that, okay, why would I be referring my client? I'm a social worker. Why would I be referring my client to another social worker? No, that is wrong. If the client's problem falls outside your specialty, please refer without hesitation. In fact, as a matter of fact, if the client's problem happens to multiply in your hands, While the client is still under your custody. And at some point, we now notice, or it gets to the professional body investigating that, okay, this client's problem happens to get worse because you decided to keep the clients to address the client's issue, even when the client's problem is not within your expertise, you will be in problem. So it's better to even refer and save yourself stress. Now, we must also fill in the gap, incompetence and impairment of colleague. Earlier on, we talked about interruption of services, a situation where you have an appointment with your client, and at some point you could not meet up with the appointment. You could quickly call your colleague to stand in. Yes, we have that ethical responsibility to fill in the gap on behalf of our colleagues. In case our colleague has issues, in case our colleague has developed some level of impairments. Now, this is something we need to take time to be professional about. Sometimes we lack respect. As social workers, like we earlier said, we must develop respect, try to learn respect. Even though you're a senior colleague, sometimes we look down on others. For example, you see your colleague with a client, talking to a client, and probably your colleague is making a mistake. It will be totally out of place to embarrass your colleague in presence of the client by saying, why are you doing this? Are you supposed to do this? Like we oftentimes see those of other medical professions do. You see a medical doctor quarreling a younger medical doctor in presence of the patient. And later on, he will still be the one to send that younger medical doctor to go and administer medications to the patient. How do you think the patient will feel? The patient will be scared. This is where doctor may quarrel, where he don't sabi anything. Now he come here. And before you know, he won't be free to receive treatment. And treatment oftentimes is not just about medicinal. It is psychological. So we need to stand in for the incompetence and impairment of colleagues. So if our colleagues are incompetent, we need to help them. Yes, that is part of your contribution. You need to contribute in promoting the profession. You see your colleague is not doing well, you help them to make improvements. Not necessarily embarrassing them in presence of the patient, the client, but taking them by the corner and telling them, okay, the way you handle this, the way you handle this is wrong. You would have done it this way. Next time, do it better. Unethical behavior of colleagues. Yes, if a colleague engaged in any unethical behavior and you notice, please call the attention of that colleague, advise the colleague, correct the colleague, and if possible, report the colleague. Referral services and consultation. We explained this earlier. There is need for you to make referrals to other agencies. And when you're making these referrals, sometimes, I don't know how to explain it, but like I always say, some of us, we used to have bad character. Even when you're referring, sometimes they want to refer with anger. Okay, go to that agency without releasing all the necessary or important information that should go alongside with that client, that would enable the other social worker to intervene appropriately. You will now begin to make the other patient, social worker to start from the scratch to identify the client problem. But you can help ease the process by transferring all vital information, necessary information relating to the client to the other social worker. You have a responsibility. Remember, we are talking about ethical responsibility. So if you send a client to another social worker or another agency and you refuse to refer or transfer the client's information, you're breaching this ethical responsibility and you're liable for suits or to be sued, right? We talked about sexual harassment and sexual relationship. Sexual harassment and sexual relationship is not just forbidden when it comes to your client. It's also not expected of you in your colleagues' relationship with your colleagues, be it your senior or your junior colleague. With all due respect, some of us, we try to use our bodies to get promotion in our places of work just to oppress others. You want to sleep with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or as a man, you want to penetrate any lady that comes around your way using your power because you're the boss in the office. is against the ethical rules. And if you're found wanting, you can be demoted, your license can be withdrawn, you can be sacked, you can even serve jail terms depending on the gravity of the offense. That takes us to another ethical responsibility. Okay, in the process of talking about our ethical responsibility to our colleagues, I omitted disputes involving colleagues. Yes, in fact, wherever 2 or 3 more persons are existing, there's bound to be chaos, there's bound to be conflict. Yes, social workers are not immune to problems, fine. We are humans. Those problems oftentimes we help to resolve among our clients can also be seen in among us. So if there's a problem, if there is a dispute involving colleagues, these problems should be resolved in a way that social workers do not take advantage of these disputes in between clients. For example, now, we should not create factions or divisions in our place of work or our agency or professional environment by saying, okay, fine, because my colleague A has issue with colleague B, you're not aligning with colleague B to antagonize colleague A, or you're not aligning with colleague A to antagonize colleague B. That would be totally wrong. You'll be making the working environment toxic. Don't take advantage of problems. And if there is problem in between colleagues, please use integrity, dignity, and worth of a person to resolve that problem. So you see some of these principles, some of these ethics are not just applicable to our relationship with our client. It also applies to our relationship with our colleagues. So it's inappropriate for social workers to criticize colleagues during helping process for any reason, like I said earlier. So let us now proceed to the other ethical responsibility, which is the third one, ethical responsibility in professional setting. Yes. Only those social workers who have strictly undertaken studies of theory and practicum courses in social work and have successfully completed their BSW or MSc or other degrees and diploma awarded by a recognized university which has approval of the University Grant Commission shall undertake professional practice of social work as teachers, consultants, and practitioners. So for you to be qualified to be a social worker, you must have gotten a BSc in social work or a related course, and you must have gotten a license. And that is why most of you are here. So that is a responsibility. Imagine practicing without license. That means you're bridging the ethical responsibility in professional practice. You're practicing social work when you're not a licensed social worker. That is a breach of the professional practice, and you can be held accountable. So for you not to breach this responsibility as social worker, you must seek to acquire the necessary requirements, the necessary certification, and that is why you're here, to avoid breaching this aspect of your ethical responsibility. Another ethical responsibility in the profession is performance evaluation and recommendations. Yes, social workers who are involved in evaluating the performance of other colleagues, such as adjudication of dissertation and the rest, should do so in a responsible and fair manner. So sometimes you're in a position to recommend others. You want to do that with all level of responsibility, not taking bribe. If you're caught taking bribe to favor the people that paid you, you'll be held accountable. So social workers who have the responsibility of selecting candidates for various programs of study in social work must strictly follow stated criteria. Another responsibility is client transfer and record keeping. As a responsibility in the profession, when a new client is referred or approaches the social worker should discuss with the client whether consultation with previous services provider, colleague, or agency would be in the best interest of the client. So even when you're making referrals, oftentimes you're at liberty to make referrals, but you don't just jump. We talked about seeking consent, right? You discuss that with your client, get the consent that, okay, see, this is why I'm referring you to another social worker. and you have to trust in trust the process. That social worker is in a better position to handle the situation, or that other agency is in a better position to handle this your situation. There are some clients that comes to you because they like you, they like your face, and they feel that you're the best person to solve their problem. They are not professionals. They don't know. So you need to help them, tell them, oh, please don't be too emotional. I appreciate the fact that you identify me as the best to solve your problem, but then these other agencies are in a better position because that is their area of specialty. This is what I can do, and I've been able to handle this part. Please cooperate with them while they address these other parts. So that is, and while doing so, you need to transfer all the records you have within you that as it concerns the client. Do not hide some. If you should hide some, then that means you were not excited about referring that client to the next agency. In fact, you want the next agency to fail in their responsibility of providing care just to make you happy. And the third ethical responsibilities, or the next responsibility we'll now be looking at is the ethical responsibilities as professionals. Yes, as a professional, we have an ethical responsibilities to maintain, to keep, right? And one of those responsibilities we have as a professional to keep is professional competence. Yes, as a professional social worker, you see, unlike other professions where you feel that, okay, fine, I'm now the professional, it stopped there. No, you must continue to demonstrate your professional competence. You must be up to date. You see, as compared to other professions, social work is unique because social work has to do with the society, and the society is dynamic. If you go to mathematics and natural sciences, 1 plus 1 will always be 1. Will always be 2. If you like, go up and come down. But in social sciences and in social work, no. 1 plus 1 can be 2 today. 1 plus 1 can be half tomorrow. 1 plus 1 can still be 0 next tomorrow, depending on the circumstances. So that's why there is need to constantly update your qualifications. You must constantly update. Workers shall accept employment requirements. So you must, for you to be able to practice social work, you must have demonstrated your competence in a prescribed area. So you cannot just say, okay, I'm a social worker, I need to be employed. Or you say they are employing social workers somewhere and you just jump to go and look for the social work job. You must ask yourself, that place they are employing social work, which social workers? Is it mental health social workers? Is it family social workers? Is it school social workers? Okay, fine. Have I demonstrated my competence in that area of social work? Do I have any qualification as it relates to that area of social work? Have I attended conferences and workshops? That is how you demonstrate. And social workers shall remain proficient in the professional practice and continue to improve knowledge and skills by routinely reviewing professional literatures and participating in continuing education. Yes, there is no end to learning social work. The fact that you're licensed tomorrow, the fact that you're done with your degree program in social work does not mean it ends there. No. In fact, the very moment you get one qualification is a beginning to an end. You need to constantly update yourself. This year social work day, how did you celebrate it? Did you just gather somewhere and eat? Some persons went somewhere, they visited hospitals and will I say, give out arms, helping hands to people. Some visited NGOs and deliver talks, educate people, carry out an awareness program, conscientization programs. I attended seminars and workshops today. It's a way of improving my capacity, my competence, continuing education. And right there, I learned a lot. In fact, one of the speakers highlighted the current improvement in social work practice in Nigeria as it awaits the inauguration of the Council of Social Work that will take place very soon, and how that inauguration is going to turn around things in the social work profession. So I learned a lot, and that is how, or that is what is expected of every social worker, to seize every opportunity to learn and improve in their skills and practice. Another responsibility in practice is private business and dishonesty. Yes, social workers should not permit their interest in private business of any nature to interfere with the fulfillment of their professional responsibilities. Like we said earlier, your client is not your business partner. Your client is not your friend. So when you're having any professional relationship with your client, do not allow your private business to come in between your relationship with your client. And you should keep in view the core values of social work. Do not associate yourself with fraud and deception or dishonesty. If such is traced to you, for example, your client comes to you. Okay, one of the services, when I went to one of the correctional institutions in Enugu, I noticed that one of the things social workers, one of the duty or assistance they render to inmates in correctional centers like prisons is to help most of these prisoners to run and fund their accounts. Yes, most of these prisoners, they still have access to their accounts. Some of them are working. They still pay them salaries. Some of them, their relatives still send them money through accounts. So the social workers also help them, connect them to some of these banks if they have issues. For example, they need ATM, they need to resolve their BVN issues. Sometimes they have problems with their account and the rest. Social workers help them to connect them to this bank staff and they fix their account. So you see that they have access to some of these confidential information, financial transactions of their clients. So if you're into fraud, you might be tempted to want to take advantage of that process. Since you have access to your client's money, you might want to steal from your client. You might want to steal your client's PIN and begin to defraud your client. So that should be, you should be careful of that. So, hello, can I be heard?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
All right, so, sorry, a call came in. I hope I can be heard now. Hello.
Yes, you have, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, so you need to be careful to avoid a situation where you want to take advantage of your client because you have access to his or her financial transactions. So that can be avoided when we do not have anything to do with our clients or allow our private businesses or interests to interfere with our clients in fulfilling our professional responsibilities. Okay, another point is misrepresentation. Social workers are not allowed to make any form of misrepresentation to their clients. So do not tell your client or your employer what you are not. Okay, because you're looking for a job and you're lying that you're a social worker when you're not a social worker, or you forge credentials. Once that is exposed, automatically you're not a social worker, and that will lead to some exposure to malpractice litigations or a lawsuit rather. So social workers must ensure that their representations to their clients, employers, and the public are accurate. Don't tell people what you're not. That is one way we practice accountability. We also have ethical responsibility to social work profession. Yes, we have a responsibility to the profession. One of your responsibilities to the profession is to be loyal and to have integrity to the profession. Yes, social workers need to practice in a way that demonstrates loyalty. Another thing is social workers must relentlessly work towards improving their skill base of the profession. So you must constantly improve your knowledge. Social workers must work towards maintaining a high standard of the profession. So you have your contributions to make to beautifying and upholding the standard of the profession. So you met social work at a particular level that is respected, the profession is high. So while coming into the profession, it is expected that you take it higher, right? So social workers must also ensure that their practice environment provide the much needed privacy and confidentiality. Yes, wherever you're practicing, mind you, one of the core principles of social work is confidentiality. So you know that confidentiality is not just limited to you not telling people. You must also take practical steps to protect your environment where you stay to interview or engage your clients. So if because of carelessness and you decide to stay where other people can eavesdrop and listen to your conversation with your client, and in the process where your client is telling you some confidential information, someone else gets to hear what your client is telling you and decide to share it with others, you can still be responsible for leaking such confidential information. So wherever you're staying to practice, it must provide the much needed confidentiality and security for your client. Yes, your clients are vulnerable. Your client comes to you, they must be secure, and the environment must be conducive to protect their confidentiality. We also have ethical responsibilities of social work institutions. So you see that we also have a responsibility with the institution you're working with. The social work institution, yes. Sometimes why this is important is because sometimes you as a social worker might be the one owning or running or managing that institution. So there must be administrative privacy, transparency. As social workers, you're employed in administration of social work, especially in educational institutions, hospital, health institutions, and the rest. Or maybe you're a field work coordinator. You want to ensure transparency in your activities, keeping in view the core values. Yes, you must be person of integrity. So because you're the boss, you're the head of a particular establishment, does not mean you should use your privilege, you abuse that privileged position to take advantage of others, to favor some group while relegating some group to the background. No, you must be known for integrity. You must practice with view to the core values of social work, with view to the principle of social work, with view to the ethical code of social work. Social work administrators must ensure that every form of discrimination is avoided. So we want to avoid discrimination, a situation where, okay, because you're a woman, you want to favor women more, or because you're a man, you want to favor men more. Or sometimes some persons will tell you, women don't even like working with their fellow women. So the fact that you're a woman and you don't like working with women, but you like working with men, that is segregation. So because you're a woman and you prefer working with men, not women, does not mean it's not segregation. That's segregation. So we want to be careful of that. We want to use there need to be balance in our administrative responsibilities, and you need to practice in a way that would ensure we avoid any form of discriminative practices in our agency. We should also have a responsibility, financial transparency. Some of us we are working in a hospital where we operate as social workers that render case management services to our clients or with our clients. Clients who are sourcing for funds, people fund their account and we help them manage that fund. There must be financial transparency. Social work institutions, agencies, and organizations must be transparent in financial dealings. Yes, keeping the value of integrity. It is important for institutions and agencies to maintain that transparency when it comes to our financial dealings. So agencies and organizations need to be accountable for the money they receive. So file annual returns, pay income taxes, and do auditing regularly. In fact, this is one of the things, responsibility you owe to the profession and the institution you find yourself. So you cannot be saying, okay, fine, your organization is known to be an organization that has integrity, and yet you're not paying taxes. You're jumping tax. You're known to be as organization that have integrity, but you're not doing annual returns. You're not auditing regularly. That is not a good sign at all. And finally, ensuring credibility. Yes, ensuring credibility. Social work institutions, agencies, and organizations should strive for ensuring credibility and setting a high practice standard. Yes, the organizations you're working with need to be known for credibility and setting the standard high or raising the bar high, right? And social work institutions and agencies and organizations must set examples by providing quality services. Hello, Oluwagboyega, your mic is disturbing us. Kindly mute, please. Thank you. So social work institutions and agencies should set examples by providing quality services, by employing qualified, experienced, and deserving service providers. Yes. So as social workers, we want to be known, or maybe if you have the responsibility of privilege of employing people, social workers, you want to settle for the best so that we can practice or be known as people or agencies or organizations that has integrity, and this can breed accountability, create a safe space for service users to freely identify with us and want us to provide helping services to them. So that is where we will come to the end of our class for today. It has been an engaging moment the past 1 hour 50 minutes, and thank you for the time. Thank you for your availability. Like I said earlier, I won't be available this coming weekend. That's why I had to make this special arrangement to cover up for this coming week, Saturday and Sunday. So I appreciate your cooperation, and I believe that we've been able to achieve something tangible today. I also am convinced that knowledge has been passed. I can see some question here. Someone typed earlier on that, sir, please kindly recap on physical contact. Is it the same as sexual relationship? Beautiful question from Yusuf Idris Okpeyemi. I hope you're still with us. Meanwhile, I will encourage you to drop your questions because it's time for questions. Okay. I'll encourage you to drop your questions, okay? So, let me address your question, Okpeyemi. Physical contact, to some extent, is not necessarily the same as sexual relations, but physical contact could lead to sexual relationships. For example, let's say a client comes to you. This client is someone of opposite sex, and you begin to
look into the eyes.
Touch the client. For example, you touch the client's hair. Your hair is beautiful. I love this your dress. Your face is so fine, and you're touching the client. That could, if care is not taken, it could gradually snowball to sexual relationship. So those physical contacts by touching your client, sometimes you can even touch the client's bobs and say, your bobs is very sharp. Or I love this dress. It's bringing out your curves. All those physical advances are unnecessary. So if a client should get annoyed, angry, and raise alarm, you can be sued for that. It could even lead to you losing your license, losing your job, and lots more. So while physical contact might not necessarily be sexual relationship in themselves, but it could gradually snowball into sexual relationship. I want to believe that answers your question, Idris Opeyemi. Now, furthermore, you might say that, okay, fine, I am a guy, and my client is also a man. There's no need touching him. There is need. In fact, there is reasons why we should not touch people unnecessarily. For example, let's say unknown to you as a social worker, your client is a gay, but you as a social worker is not a gay, and you begin to touch your client. I love your haircut. I love this shirt. And you know, based on our worldview, what we like, we interpret things differently. Those touches might be harmless, but because he is a gay and it's a guy that is touching him, you might begin to send a wrong impression. In his mind, he might begin to feel like, oh, this my social worker likes me. I think this my social worker has identified the fact that I am a gay and he wants to connect with me, even when that's not your intention. So there is need for us to avoid physical contact, not physical distancing or social distancing per se, but the physical contact is about touching people or touching our clients in a way that could suggest, will I say, that could provoke them, or suggest some kind, or send some kind of wrong message to our clients. I hope that addresses your question. All right. Any other question? Please, it's time to ask questions.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Okay.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear
Good
me?
evening. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you so much for the great presentation. My name is Favor. My question was on examination of appointments. Before I ask my question, I just want to add to the last question that you answered. I think also physical contact. You can also write it during the concept. So if you have a concept form that during the process of delivering my work, there will be time when I will have to touch the clients. So it's boldly written. That could also exempt you from any form of okay, you are abusing the person or something like that. So that's just my two-kobo contribution. So at what point should you terminate a client's service? At what point should you say, okay, this person has gotten to this stage, services need to be terminated? So that's my question. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you for your question. That's a very beautiful one. But then there are no hard and fast rule to this. It solely depends on you, the social worker. You understand from the beginning of your intervention, right? It's just like you're raising a child, and the child is trying to learn how to walk, and you're holding the child's hands. The first day you hold the child's hands, the second day, you should know when to leave the child's hand, right? There are things you should see the child demonstrating. Okay, he could stand on his own. The fact that he could stand on his own, let me leave his hand and then try to encourage him to take some steps forward. Beautiful. So it applies, it's the same in a similar way from your intervention with the client. Let's say, for example, you're working with this client that is having issues with smoking and drinking. And in the process, you notice when you first met him, he was smoking 2 packets of cigarettes every day. Along the line, he started smoking 1 packet. That does not mean he's not making improvement. He's making a very huge one. The fact that he's still smoking, but he has reduced the number of cigarettes he takes. At some point, he started taking just one stick of cigarette a day. At some point, he started taking one packet in a whole week, something he used to take one day. At some point, he started taking one packet in one month. At some point, he started taking one stick in 1 month. At some point, he started taking one stick or one packet in 6 months. So you should be able to identify each step of your client's improvements. And as a social worker, you should know that, okay, fine, from this level, from this point of my relationship with the client, this client can survive on his or her own without any support. Now, when we talk about termination, sometimes it's not like you terminate and that is the end of it. Once you terminate, you will still be keeping an eye to see how the client is faring. Sometimes termination is not total termination per se. If you terminate, there might be need for you to come back when the client relapse. There's always room for a situation where the client relapse. So it depends on you to know that, okay, fine, at this point of the client, you can be working with a client for 2 years without termination. But someone, depending on the situation and the client's improvement, someone can work with a client for 3 months or 6 months and terminate the relationship. So it depends on those indicators, what you can see and perceive that, okay, fine, with this, I am satisfied that this client can continue from here going forward on his own, on his or her own, without necessarily relying on me. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I saw someone's hand up. I don't know. Why is the hand
Good evening,
down?
sir.
Good evening.
So, yes, my name is
Okay,
Nasir.
that is Oluwatosin. Who is speaking, please?
Nasir
Oluwatosin.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, please
Good
go
evening,
on.
sir. Very well, sir. I really appreciate that lecture. Over the years I've been in this system, I've not heard about informed consent. And I would like to be clarified with some issues. Is it this informed consent, does it come before clacking, or is it before intervention, or can we regard informed consent as, okay, let me cite a scenario of we're working in a, what is it called, agency, a client's walk in to lay a complaint probably about the spouse, or a client wants an intervention and explains herself that this is what she wants and help in this particular area. Should we regard that all the client said as an informed consent, or is to be done the way we do it in research, that we have a particular form to fill? So I just want to have a clear knowledge of what informed consent should be and when it should be applied at the course of dealing with clients.
Okay. Thank you for that beautiful question too. I think you see, our relationship with our clients is not a rigid one. It's very flexible. It's expected to be flexible and fluid, right? So it's not like you have a set of rules or form for the clients to fill. It depends on the decision, the choices that opens up in the course of your relationship with the client. Okay, please, ma. You see, there is a problem. Your husband and you're married and you're having issues with your husband and your wife. Or the both of you, husbands and wife, are having issues. And your husband, your partner is threatening your life. The last time he used machete or kitchen knife, neighbors came to hold him. What do you think? Do you feel safe in that house? I don't feel safe. Oh, my social worker, I won't lie to you. In fact, for the past 2 weeks, whenever I'm sleeping, any noise, if I just hear any noise like this, I will wake up. Why do you wake up? Because I feel like my husband wants to harm me with a kitchen knife. So that person, you notice that by such explanation, that client is having anxiety disorder and is interfering with the client's sleep. And the client's husband has actually demonstrated a threat. And the client husband has never, at this point of intervention, the client husband has not even demonstrated any level of remorse. He only complained, or maybe he only pleaded with the police to be bailed, but he's not even cooperating with the social worker to see how he can come back to feel regret over his action. And the wife is not feeling safe and secure. You now ask, okay, please, you're not safe. Do you think it's wise to continue to stay there in that house? Hey, my dear, you think if I have a place to go, I won't go? Oh, you mean if there is a place you can go and stay, you will definitely leave that house? Say yes. Oh, really? And you as a social worker, you have a shelter or you have an NGO or an agency, you know that, okay, fine, they have a mandate to address this kind of issue and even provide shelter for partners who are having issues with their marriage, so that they can be sheltered and taken care of till the problem is addressed, then they can now go back. Oh, so you mean if I refer you to an agency, you would be comfortable? Say, yes, I will. Oh, really? Okay, fine. There is a consent form here. Please, fill and indicate that it is your decision to leave the house, to stay in the shelter till your family problem with your husband is resolved and you feel safe to come back to the house. So that tomorrow now, the same woman will not go back and say, it's my social worker that asked me to leave my husband's house. Oluwatosin, I hope that is clear.
Yes, very clear. So it's very clear, sir. What you are trying to say is that this informed consent is applicable based on the condition and the type of sensitive intervention that one wants to take.
Exactly.
So if the intervention is sensitive, there will be need for that.
It's beautiful. Okay. So thank you, sir. You might not, and some of these issues might not necessarily be envisaged at the beginning. Yes. You never can tell what will come up in the course of your engagement with the client. So you never can, you can, since you don't know, there is no way you can give your client consent from the beginning to begin to sign. No, it's in the process.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for that question. All right. Any other question? Okay. I really appreciate your time and I really appreciate your questions, which is an following throughout the course of the class. So like I always encourage, please, you have the material, do well to go through the material so that when we meet next time, our class will be engaging. So within the week, I will still reach out to you next week and meet, just in case next week weekend will not be possible. And I hope that our next meeting, we will be concluding our class, our next meeting. If we are able to meet 2 hours, just like today, we should conclude the slide and begin to prepare you for your exam so that you will also use the remaining time to prepare for your field work and your seminar presentation. So take care and enjoy the rest of your night. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Nice night, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Good night.